Welcome to Hit the Road with Mo and Joy. We're friends that met in kindergarten and we love to travel. Now we're sharing our experiences and inspiring you to explore. Whether you're traveling by sea, in a train, flying high, or road tripping, it's time to hit the road with Mo and Joy. Hello and welcome to Hit the Road with Mo and Joy, and Happy New Year, Mo!
Happy New Year, Joy! You know, I was just visualizing the whole Merry Christmas, Charlie Brown. You know, like those voices. That's what I was kind of hearing in my head when you did that. Very random.
But even though we love Charlie Brown, it is not Christmas anymore. It is New Year's.
It is New Year's.
It's 2026.
Really, really crazy. I think 2025 was such a crazy blur, and I don't know, there's things to be said that don't need to be said about 2025. But it's interesting, you know, so many people that I've talked to reflected that 2025 was just an off year for them. And that's really been the overwhelming majority of feedback that I've received. How about you?
I think people are ready to put 2025 in the rearview mirror. Not as bad as, you know, like 2020 or whatever happened then.
Yeah.
But they're just done with it and ready to move on and start fresh. And you and I had kind of talked about it a little bit, and we wanted to talk through some travel goals since it's the new year and some of us are doing some New Year's resolutions and trying to be better people. One of those things might be adding some travel goals to that list. And we just wanted to kind of talk through that a little bit, right?
Yeah, I totally agree. I loved what you were talking about. It really caught my attention earlier of the importance of planning a vacation and do not wait, but to be intentional. You know, in terms of New Year's goals, I kind of got away from doing that some years ago. And as a matter of fact, you and I have both been doing this with our friend Lynn, but we kind of started the tradition of creating a word of the year for the New Year's. So as opposed to a specific New Year's resolution, so to speak. So I would just like to throw that out there to the listeners for consideration. You know, it's so easy to get away and get caught up in the hustle and bustle, and you can quickly overlook your New Year's resolution or whatever plan. You know, for us, I know we've put a lot of time and energy into the selection of our annual word of the year. We actually kicked off some of our working session today talking about what that looked like. I would say some quick tips for being able to be very intentional for your word of the year. If you keep still a paper calendar, like we do, and still enjoy the written word. At the beginning of every month on my calendar, I do some sort of write-up or reference to remind myself and encourage myself to continue working on whatever the word of the year represents. You know, obviously, there's more than just travel to a life, although travel is just such a highlight of the life. But that's one really great way. And even if you're a New Year's resolution person, that could be an idea, whether you're, you know, writing some tips in your calendar, or if you keep a electronic calendar, maybe do a little monthly reminder and check in with how you're doing on your resolution to, you know, try to stay on course.
Yes. So what was your word of the year last year?
Oh my gosh. Are you really going to get me with that? You have to take this out. I didn't bring my calendar, but I did like all those write-ups. And so I can't remember what it is. It started
Thrive.
with an I. Oh, it was Thrive. Okay, hold on. Can we start over?
So what was your word of the year last year, Bo?
Well, my word for 2025 was thrive. And, when I was rounding out the last couple of months of the year, just because I think a lot of things popped up that were very unexpected, I kind of thought that I had lost touch with my word, and I actually couldn't even recall it. But I was very inspired, I will say, to realize as I went back in my calendar for the year and looked at all of the months, I had carefully written out different things to help me carry forward the thought of thriving and what that might look like in different areas of my life. What about you?
I don't remember my word last year.
Yeah, I do. It has noticed that from time to time it feels a little bit difficult to stay in touch, but I think it kind of goes back to what you were saying earlier, which is being intentional.
Right. Writing it down.
Yes.
And being able to reference it. I'm working on New Year's goals with a friend of mine right now, and promised that I would email it to her once a month so that we would remember, and we would try to turn wishes into goals.
So an accountability partner.
A little bit, yeah.
Okay, that's definitely taking it next level. And it's not really a bad idea, though, because for whatever reason, whether it's our culture or whatever, things seem to get lost in the shuffle.
Right. And you forget, and you walk away from it, and you go on with your busy life. And
that's right. Then
what happened to those quote unquote resolutions or those decisions that you're trying to make to be better at this or do better at that? I'm trying my best not to commit to anything that I don't think that I can accomplish.
Yeah.
But
being realistic, but also having that little bit of a stretch goal.
Absolutely.
There's corporate talk for you.
And you just whipped it right out.
Did you see that? Like, you weren't even looking, and you looked up to make eye contact over that one. How long has it been since you've heard that term? Oh my gosh.
They beat it into us.
I know. Well, let's kind of talk a little bit about our 2026 travel goals.
Yes.
I loved some of your perspectives. So share with us kind of what your general travel goals have looked like, but maybe more so, do you have anything more specific that you're reconsidering for 2026?
A few years ago, I had decided, because I was not stretching myself and I was not getting out of Jacksonville proper enough, that I was going to take 4 trips a year. And they didn't have to be big major trips, but they did need to be out of town, and a couple of them needed to be a flight away. A couple of them could be a drive away, but I wanted them to be 3 to 7 days worth so that I could unwind and unfurl. And so I have kept that mentality once a quarter to just get away from it all. And with travel, you just get such a different reset and different perspective. You're away from your stuff, you're away from your house, you're away from your normal. It's so important to me to do that and to get out of the routine and the day-to-day. And that keeps me sharp in a way, and that keeps me giving me something to look forward to. And I think it's so important to be intentional and to put it on your calendar and to put it as a quote-unquote goal for the year. It's become a stalwart for me in the past 3, 4, 5 years. I have adhered to it without really even trying. So I think I'm going to keep that. I haven't really planned out my travel per se. I'm bobbling with my sister-in-law right now, a couple of cruises. You and I are kind of bobbling back and forth about a couple of road trips. My friend Colette and I, we've bobbled a little bit, but nothing has firmed up so far. But I'm being intentional, and I'm having the conversations with these people. Hey, where do you want to go? What have you not explored, or what have you heard about that interests you? Or, where do you want to go back to? We had a great trip over here. We had a great trip doing that. Why don't we revisit it? I think two things that I am getting away from. Number one is road trips. I don't want to be in and out of the car every night.
Okay.
Going to different locations, unpacking, doing all that. I learned that I enjoy cruising probably a lot more than I thought that I would. But I think what's appealing is the unpacking once and having somebody else take care of everything. So I'm considering immersive travel, just like you've got those pals of yours that went to Thailand and they parked it for 6 months and they just experienced it over there. Now, I don't think I'm going to do Thailand, but an immersive trip in that you go to one place and you use that as a jumping off point. So I'm considering doing that maybe in South Carolina this year, just to be up closer to the mountains. And I don't know, but it's all bobbling and it's all thoughts right now. What about you, Mo?
That's really interesting, and I'm a little bit surprised that you're considering immersing in South Carolina, just because you go up there, fairly frequently. I would have expected that you would have chosen somewhere else, unless you're going to go to a section of that state that you have not immersed in.
It's safe up there because I've got some family that's kind of close by,
right?
And there's so much to explore up there.
Yeah.
All the national parks, the hikes, that kind of stuff I'm interested in.
Interesting. Travel for us, I don't think it truly hit me until this past year in 2025. Travel has been such a big part of our family with Mikey's baseball for so long. Gosh, I at least 10 years?
Mm-hmm.
So that took up so much of our travel space, so to speak. However, we were able to get in, a few things here and there. We have a couple of things a year that we do with our Blue family and some conferences. And then, there's always been things that we've wanted to do that we weren't able to fit in, whether it was from a time perspective or a budget perspective, mainly because so much of our time and money went to baseball trips.
Yeah.
So I feel like 2026 is going to be the beginning for us. It'll be our first full year as empty nesters and being able to take more control of where we're going. Now, there's still going to be some degree of travel related to Mikey, at least here and there. I'm actually just looking forward to the concept of looking at travel from a completely different perspective than what we've been used to.
Right.
For at least 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
I have to admit, what we did over December, our shows. So we did our first interview for this podcast show. We did the European Christmas Market cruise interview with Lynn. And that was such an interesting perspective to get and to see that people really love Christmas travel.
Mm-hmm.
I was not necessarily expecting the response. And then we followed up our Christmas show, so to speak, back in mid-December with the Christmas extravaganza. And we kind of just did a mishmash of highlights of a couple of, Gen X Christmas memories, one of your family recipes, and some stories, and then just highlighted a couple of places and towns that we had experienced some Christmas travel in the past. So for me, I'd like to be intentional for, I'd like to consider the possibility of you, Lynn, and I going to a new Christmas travel location where Christmas travel is kind of a thing there, and the town is really into that. I'd like to explore some kind of live interactions with that. And I also like the idea of kind of exploring some additional cruises. I've only been on the one cruise line 2 times. I think you and I earlier were discussing some of the what are the things that stand out for this cruise line versus this cruise line. And I'm also interested in the possibility, it won't be for 2026, but I'd like for us to intentionally look into kind of a different vein of Lynn's Christmas European market cruise that were in Germany and Prague. I've been given on very good authority that the Poland one is also amazing. And you had kind of mentioned that you've seen some references to that. So maybe 2027 would be a really great year for us to consider exploring that opportunity. And then I know you and I kind of joked around about the idea of taking a Southern Living, since we are Southern girls, taking one of their trips that they highlight. And there are so many things to choose from. So for me, I'm going to want it to be someplace that we've never been. So it's fresh for both of us. And you and I tend to both be planners, and we take turns, and sometimes we do it together, but I want to do a completely different experience, something I've never done before, and actually follow the Southern Living trip from beginning to end. And then I'd like for us to kind of record our experiences, our thoughts, and then off the record too, I'd like for us to kind of do a little bit of homework and do some side things, because I'd like to be able to add, hey, if this would have been our trip that we planned ourselves, we would have possibly done this or gone here as opposed to here, have some additional pieces of information. But the thought of our hands being completely out and just following a timeline, that's given.
Yeah. And an itinerary.
Yeah. Like I love Southern Living. I still look at that magazine. It's probably the only magazine I really even look at from time to time anymore. And obviously travel is a highlight for them. I also wouldn't be sad to maybe one day we go somewhere and we have like a cooking experience or something along that line, experiencing travel in a very different way. I think will be long-term goals for me to begin pursuing now that I feel like there's a lot more freedom.
Right. And it's not go see the thing or go do the thing that the kid wants to do to entertain the kid. It's what do I want? And it's a mindset shift, number one.
For sure.
But what do I want?
Exactly. And that is a key question, because honestly, us kind of sitting here going through some of this stuff today, I guess I hadn't even necessarily realized the mind shift until we started talking through it. Because when you're just used to doing things a certain way, you don't necessarily, it takes time and some reflection to realize that there's been a shift.
Right. And you've got to get to know yourself again.
In a little bit of a different way.
This version of you.
Yeah.
Right. And I cared for my elderly mom for many years.
Yes, you did.
And yes, you do things a certain way so that you go along to get along and so that you can meet their expectations and everything. But you, with family and with work and with all these things, you lose yourself.
Yes.
And you forget yourself, and you get to where that you really don't know yourself in some instances, and you do have to sit there and reflect and, well, gosh, what is it that I want? What do I want to do? Where do I want to spend my money? And where do I want to get my jollies?
That you're hitting the nail on the head in so many aspects. You know, it's interesting to me, first of all, that we've, you know, this is obviously our second podcast. This is very different show than what we actually produced last year based upon my real life job search experience. But it's very interesting for me to sit back, and obviously there's planning and there's work that goes into producing the show, which I feel like we've obviously experienced now in two different ways. But it's also interesting for me to realize that there are times when we're just sitting here working and recording the show live, and we actually have some of these revelations real time, that they weren't necessarily planned, but you're kind of like, oh, wow, like I didn't really realize or see it in that manner. So it's just another real way to kind of experience life and have those realizations that are a part of all the things that we experience at different times.
Mm-hmm. I did think of another travel goal that I had for this year. There's a pastor that I follow.
Okay.
And she's doing a conference, and I thought, oh, that would be a great travel goal to get out there and go see that, just to put good things into my head and good thoughts. And what about, there's another fella that does like a goal setting session, and he does it in Nashville. So I was thinking about going to see him as well, or a business entrepreneurship type session, but there's several other things like that I'm bobbling to get myself out of my comfort zone and to use that as an educational type travel.
You know, when you say that, talking about real time, it makes me think that I've had this goal in the back of my mind for quite a while, and I think I'll be able to realize it in the next year or two based on a couple of factors. But I want to be able to surprise Alex with a travel experience to go do a multi-day barbecue class. And there had been one particular famous barbecue guy that he had been talking about going for quite a long time, and now someone else has been added to the list. So that is definitely a goal of mine. I won't join him on that. It will be for either, you know, he and his brother to go on, or he and one of his sons, or both of his sons, because doing all the smoking and the grilling is really big on his side of the family. And so that's definitely something that I want to surprise him with at some point.
Mm-hmm. Very cool.
Yeah, he'd love that.
We have good travel goals. Now we just need to firm them up.
Yes, I definitely agree with that. And I would just say, for those listening, we'd love to hear, do you guys intentionally plan out, and do you think about your annual goals in terms of travel? I know all of us kind of do our yearly planning, and we have different perspectives, right, at different points in our lives, whether it be we have young children or we don't, or we're helping an elderly parent or we're not. It's a lean year, or it's, you know, it's a robust year. Whatever is the case in your life, I think we all make decisions about what are the key things and what are the key ways that we enjoy life. And so obviously that's where your time, energy, and money tend to be focused, right?
Yes, absolutely. And you mentioned several things there, and what I thought of was not only having your family travel, but choosing to have friend travel, or choosing to have parental travel, or choosing to have a one-on-one with your kid, or even going solo. I had suggested a solo trip to a friend of mine, and she said, what, go by myself, alone? Well, yes, by yourself and alone. But explore some of these other forms of travel, and you get so much out of it, and so much. I remember the first trips that I took with my friends and how much funner they were than traveling with my parents. You know, there's just so much to be gained, and not trouble to get into, but you learn so much.
Yeah.
When you're trying to figure out what gate to get to yourself versus having somebody, come on, we're going to go to gate B12 and we're going to take this tram.
Right.
When you have to look at it with your own eyes and figure it out with your own brain, that's so important. And I think kids should go through that and do solo travel and figure it out.
I think those are great challenges. I will say for myself, I have had all the variations that you described, with the exception of, so I guess there's the caveat. I've done plenty of solo travel,
For
but
work.
never from a personal experience.
Okay.
Only from a work experience. I could see the value in a solo trip to a degree, but I think, I don't know, like, it's not something that I've actually actively thought about or pursued. Just because if you have a lifestyle, like, I remember there were so many years that I did travel so much for work, and then you kind of get the burnout, right? And, you want to have time with your family or with your spouse or whoever it is. But that is one thing, though, talking about the family trips versus the parent trips. That is one thing that I was always very strict about. And there were some years that either we didn't have the time or the money, but we at least got in a weekend trip by ourselves.
Yes.
For that year. And it's kind of funny because it didn't actually work like that in Alex's family at all. So that was a little bit interesting to get certain feedback, but I've just always felt that it's really important for the married couple to try to stay as connected as they can as well, because at some point the kid does leave.
Yep.
It's just great to be able to have a little bit of the downtime that you have, whether it's just you as a couple or you go with other family members or friends.
Yes, absolutely.
So I definitely agree with that. I think that's really important. And I wonder what the listeners think about that and what the perspectives, because sometimes I have noticed that can become a little bit of a heated discussion and people feel very passionate about that for whatever reason. I just take it as a little bit more matter of fact myself. But everyone kind of has their thoughts and opinions. So Joy, I'd like to ask you to share some of your thoughts specifically about budgeting for travel as we're wrapping up.
Right. So if you're going to take all these trips, you've got to have the money to take the trips. Mm-hmm. And I believe you should put the money aside. And I think it should be intentional money for trips. So that means your other money has to be built up, and you have to have your emergency fund and all these other things, because the trips are going to be extra funds, and we are not going to put them on credit cards, and we are not going to do any of that stuff. We pay for the trips that we have.
Right. Or you can put them on your credit cards for your points, but you're paying it right off.
That.
You're getting the benefit, but you're paying it right off.
That.
Yes.
Yes. We're not going to be paying for a trip to Walt Disney World 20 years from now. No.
Oh, yeah, that's stressful.
One of the things me and a friend did was we set up a vacation fund.
Okay.
And when I was working, I would have the funds sweep directly into that account after every paycheck. That has worked out really well, and that money just seems to grow and grow and grow and grow.
Oh, so hold on. Let me pause you there. You're saying you just automatically direct deposit to an account. You're not necessarily just thinking, hey, I'm going to wherever next year, so I'm going to start a fund for that. Like, what you're saying is you're actively saving for any potential future trip on a regular basis.
Yes.
Oh, that's
so
great.
I think there's value to what you said previously, but there's value to this too.
You're right. I've never thought about it like that.
And when there's lean times or there's extra expenses that go along
Right.
with said trip,
Yeah.
or you just want to pay for the down payment, but you're going to go up with the cash for the rest of it. All kinds of stuff. And I travel with a couple friend of mine, and there's always that awkward moment when the bill comes, and well, how do we split it? And well, what's the tax? And well, what is the tip going to be with that? And we avoid all that by just paying for said meal with the travel fund. So it just creates ease. You know, sometimes I'll get the steak, sometimes they'll get the champagne, just different. It works itself out in the end. But yes, just having that travel fund that continuously builds, and it's been very helpful. It doesn't pay for everything, like I say, but it takes the edge off. And once it gets pretty big, it's like, oh, well, we've got all this money in this account. Why don't we go take a trip?
I really like that perspective, and I guess I was not aware of some of that. So here's some more real time learning. But I think I'm gonna really consider the idea of actively saving for just a travel fund. You know, I know for me, a couple of different techniques that I had adopted that were brand new started when Alex and I did our very first proper road trip. So we did a 10-day 10th anniversary road trip. And so I just, you know, whipped out my Word doc, and it was not a sexy document, like, at all. Let me just first, you know, qualify. But it was my first time. Well, first of all, that was probably the longest trip we had been on, and Lord knows how long, right? Because we had kids and all that. But it was my first time intentionally mapping out a trip, thinking through where we would stay when, and creating an active budget. I also went so far as to write down the actuals every day to kind of compare it, because I didn't want it to be too burdensome, but I really wanted to be able to kind of get a good feel for how close that I came to hitting the mark. And surprisingly, I was really close. I employed that same method when we did our 22-day cross-country road trip when Alex retired. It was very, very helpful. But again, we still left intentional downtime, or if we wanted to change plans when we got somewhere, then that's what we did. But we had like the bones, so to speak, and a budget. And so what we did is, once I had the budget, because I had planned out like the year in advance or whatever, we saved the money, and then we saved additional spending money for that, and then we were done. So yeah, that's definitely a really good perspective and a great tip. So I guess I would just throw out there to any listeners, what are your favorite travel budgeting tips? You know, what has worked, and maybe even what hasn't worked.
Yeah.
That'd be great to know. I already feel like I've learned some stuff right here.
Yes. And some goals for your goals.
Oh my gosh. Well, Joy, I am looking forward to us finishing up our Ireland counterclockwise road trip series.
Yes.
And before we know it, we will be wrapping up season 1 of Hit the Road with Mo and Joy.
Aw.
I know, already. Yeah. So I know that we'll be utilizing a little bit of downtime and planning behind the scenes before we kick up with season 2. But this has just been such a great experience. And, you know, wow. I mean, we created and produced 2 podcasts in 2025.
How about that? Who knew that was going to happen? And that was not on my goal sheet last year.
Nor mine. I could have never imagined any reason that I would have had to create a podcast, much less actually admit to someone which funny enough, on our first podcast, the Real Talk for Today's Job Seekers, I actually did not admit to anyone for the first 5 months that I had done this, because I was just like, oh my gosh, my professional peers are going to judge me, or whatever the case may be. And Joy, when you tapped on my shoulder and said, hey, I don't think our podcast journey is over. I'd love to take Hit the Road with Mo and expand it. I wasn't really sure where it would take us, but what a learning experience across the board it's been. So I appreciate you tapping me on the shoulder. I'm really looking forward to what Hit the Road with Mo and Joy has coming.
And as we sit here at the precipice of 2026, and I haven't written anything down about the podcast other than to grow and to come up with better content or whatever. But I wonder what it's going to look like at the end of 2026.
I don't know. I'm looking forward to that, but I know one thing's for sure. I know we will continue forward with our Christmas themed shows in December. Those were fun for us, and clearly they were fun for our listeners and followers. I do know, as a super, super sneak peek, that you will be covering your Alaska cruise.
Yes.
So we've got some really fun things coming up, and I'm really looking forward to seeing where this takes us.
Yes, you guys don't forget to like and subscribe and comment and do all the things so that the algorithms will love us, because we know you love us. So don't forget to get out there and explore.
Yes, indeed.
Cheers, Mo.
Cheers to 2026.
Thanks for tuning in to Hit the Road with Mo and Joy. If you have questions or topic suggestions, we would love to hear from you. You can connect with us through our website at hittheroadwithmoandjoy.com. On the website, you'll find all the things: socials, blogs, recommendations, inspiration, and things you might need to know for upcoming travel. And if you'd like to partner or advertise with us and connect with our amazing audience across the country, feel free to reach out to us at hittheroadwithmoandjoy.com/media. That's it from us this week, but don't forget, get out there and explore.